About our last type of element, we have objects. Objects which are derived from a class. Classes here are much more simple to be used than JavaScript, because class comes really inside PHP, and in JavaScript was different, but they created classes on JavaScript, so to say. Anyway, here we have our class voyage. I have to say that an object or a class, an object, so a class, is the representation, the programmatical representation of something that that is real, something that belongs to the reality. Like, for example, in this case, we are talking about a trip, we can talk about a person, we can talk about a tool, etc., etc. Anyway, so we have this trip that has a date, a location, and a date, or attributes, properties, elements, how you want to call it, and then we define objects as a new class. So this is a generical object that gives us the baseline of how our next objects will be created. So we are printing different objects that belongs to the same class. So we can print voyage 2, voyage 3, voyage 4, etc., etc. And as you can see here, I'm defining where and when inside my voyage 1. So I'm saying voyage 1 will be to Rome on Wednesday. Now, about class, of course, there is much to say, because here there is public, and you're probably wondering what is public. It can be private, can be protected, and what is the constructor? What is the function constructor? Well, we will go into it later on in the course. For now, I just want to show the object, because this is the scope. The goal of our lesson now was to give to talk about the types of variable. And as you can see, we have an object of the voyage class, and we have the first element, attribute property, is where, and it's a string of four letters, and the value is Rome. Then when is the second element, is a string of 9 elements, and is Wednesday. Quite simple. Now, last thing I can say, I want to say about PHP is that is very liberal with its typing value, because for example, now we have var_dump location, which will give us a string, but if you change $location and you give it a number, and then you print it on the screen again, now I actually lost my as you can see, it gives us a string 4. I string 4 because the first value was this, then integer 12 because we changed the value to it. So unlike unlike JavaScript, for example, if the value of of our variable is what is holding inside, but you can easily change it without causing any trouble. There are other programming languages that doesn't behave like this. For example, in JavaScript, if you do like something like this, it throws an error. You would see a red line under here, and you can't move on, or at least I don't know. It causes trouble now. I'm a little confused about about what it does. Anyway, other more strict programming languages um, uh, force you to define the types of your variable. Um, like for example, you have to write a string, and you have to write a string, and every time you define a variable, you need to say what is the type of variable you want to specify. And then if you write that is an integer and then you say the string, it will then throw errors everywhere. This I think it's this property of PHP. It's how do you say, a blade of two sides. No, it has advantages and disadvantages, because it has the advantage that um, it allows you to write code, let's say faster, or to do things that you cannot do, to adjust maybe something. But then you might find problems, mistakes that you did. You can't find it, and then you have to spend time looking after your code to see what's wrong. To give an example of TypeScript is a superset of JavaScript that really put these rules into action all the time on JavaScript. It's a simplification, and this is used very often to companies that wants their employee to use TypeScript. So they, even though they code slower, then they won't produce many errors, or the errors that they produce, they will come up much faster to the surface, and so you won't find to be looking at a mistake inside maybe 1,000 lines of code. Anyway, apart from this little parenthesis, this is it for this lesson, and we will move on in the next lesson, of course. Thank you very much for watching, and I see you in the next video. Hi guys, welcome back. In this video, we are going to talk about the types of data. First of all, var dump is the function that can show us the type of data on the screen. So it will print the types of data on the screen. If someone already knows JavaScript, is the equivalent of type of. Then we have the types of data that we have, as always, or maybe is new: string, integer, decimal, boolean, array, object, and null. Okay, so let's start looking at some examples. Here I took an example of a voyage, of a trip. Anyway, it doesn't matter. And last we have var dump. First of all, location is a string. A string is a series of letters or even number, but they are between two double quotes or two single quotes. But they must be, if there is a single quote at the beginning, it must be a single quote at the end. And that's it. It can be an entire text of 3,000 characters. It can contain special characters or numbers, of course, or can be even just an empty string. Anyway, now let's see var dump, what var dump does. Save. And as you can see, it says that is a string that has 4 characters inside, and then it prints the string. Okay. About distance, distance is an integer. An integer is a number. You can write it as it is like now. If you have a number like this, is not a number but it's a string, and that's it. And if I come here, I place distance. Of course, I need to save again, and then of course it says there is an integer, and it says that the integer is 24. Okay, distant p, which should be distant precise distance, doesn't matter, is a float, so it's 24.54. In which is, as you already know, I hope, is a decimal number. JavaScript makes everything as number. So if we were in a JavaScript code, now we were using type of, it would appear as number. But here is different because PHP is different. So it takes a difference between float and decimal and integer. So you can see, and as you can see, it says it is a float. Is online a boolean, can have two values only. Is online true or is online false? Anyway, let's print on the screen. I think is already pretty much explanatory how the use case of this value, but it has of course other possibility maybe that you can use it for, and yes, you can use it for true, or you can write false. No other false. No other possibility. Then this one is an array. I will talk about array maybe later, for who doesn't know it yet. Anyway, it's a system of strings in this case, but it can be even a system of numbers. Anyway, let's print the array. Okay, sorry. And as you can see here, it says that is an array of three elements, and the first element is the index 0, not index 1, blah blah blah. Is a string of 5 letters, that and that the value is Parma. And the second is the first one, um, is the first index. It's a string of 5 letters and the value is Milan. Then the third is the string of 5 letters and the value is Turin. Of course, there can be numbers here, no problem. You can have 34. And as you see, the last one is an integer, and its value is 34. Okay, last one, done, which is represents our null value. Um, so if I write done, it says it gives an error, actually a warning, undefined variable on line 21. So it's pretty much an error. It's not really an error, it's saying that the value is null. If you come here and you say that is null from a first instance, actually we are assigning the same value to it, but it won't throw an error, but it will just say that is a null value.